Hello Nigerians, we have a breaking news and this is very serious. Today, we are not talking about rumors, we are not talking about pepper soup gossip from Abuja corridors. We are talking about a soldier, a serving colonel in the Nigerian army who has finally opened his mouth and told the world in his own words why he allegedly planned to overthrow the government of President Bola Tinubu. I want you to stay with me till the end of this one, because this story touches soldiers, it touches politicians, it touches ordinary Nigerians struggling to feed their families, and it touches the very foundation of our democracy. If you only watch the first 5 minutes, you will miss the real gist. This story involves Colonel Mohammed Ma'aji, alleged to be the ringleader of a group of military officers and civilians who, according to investigators, plotted to topple the Tinubu administration. And it comes at a time when this country is already stretching thin, hardship in the markets, insecurity in the north, and now questions about loyalty inside the barracks itself. Before I continue, please, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. And if this story is touching you the way it's touching me, drop a like. It helps this channel reach more Nigerians who need to hear the truth, not the sanitized version. Now, let us set the scene properly, because context matters. This alleged coup plot did not just fall from the sky. According to reports, it was uncovered around late September 2025, and the fallout was immediate and visible to every Nigerian, even those who didn't know the details at the time. You remember the October 1st Independence Day parade last year, the one that was cancelled. Many Nigerians asked questions then, and government did not give a full explanation. Now we know, or at least now we have a much clearer picture, that the cancellation was connected to this very plot. Around the same period, there were changes at the top of our military leadership, including the removal of Christopher Musa as Chief of Army Staff. Now, I want to be honest with you, the way a journalist should be. At the time, the Defense Headquarters did not come out and give Nigerians a clean, categorical statement. They did not scream coup from the rooftops, but they also did not deny that military officers were involved in an alleged plot. That silence, that careful, calculated silence, is itself part of this story. Since then, the accused, including Colonel Maji, have been undergoing trial in a civilian court, and it is in the middle of that legal process that Maji has now spoken through a statement made available to the press, laying out in his own words what pushed him to this point. So, what exactly did the man say? Let me read you the weight of his own words, because this is not me talking, this is the colonel himself. He said, and I quote him directly, "What has happened has a very long history, and it is driven by patriotism, and I love the job and country." He went further to say, "Everything we planned was born out of patriotism, love of country, and the desire to have a prosperous Nigeria that we all can be proud of." Strong words, very strong words from a man facing very serious allegations. He didn't stop there. Maji spoke about his own personal struggle, a soldier, a family man trying to survive on a military salary. He said, in his own words, that every time he looks at how he is struggling to raise 5 children on his salary, he gets worried. He talked about attending Army Day Secondary School himself as a child, and how today many military families can no longer afford that same standard of education for their own children. This is the human angle Nigerians need to hear. Whatever you think about coups, whatever your political leaning, you cannot deny that this is a man painting a picture of frustration. A soldier who feels that the system that trained him can no longer take care of people like him. Now, my brothers and sisters, this is where I put on my investigative journalist cap, and I want you to pay close attention, because this is important. In this kind of story, we must separate what is confirmed fact from what remains allegation or interpretation. Let's do that properly. Here is what we can say is documented based on Maji's own statement and court records reported by credible outlets. Fact:
Colonel Maji is accused, alongside other serving and retired officers and some civilians, of planning to overthrow the Tinubu government. Fact, he has admitted in his own statement to being involved and has apologized for that involvement. Fact, he says the origins of the plan trace back to the tail end of the Buhari administration before Tinubu even came to office. Fact, the matter is currently before a civilian court, not a military tribunal. Now, here is what remains allegation, interpretation, or one man's account that has not been independently verified beyond his own words. His claim that the plot was purely about patriotism and not about personal ambition, that is his interpretation of his own motive, and reasonable Nigerians can question it. His account of who funded what, who said what to who, those details come from his statement and from court filings reported by the press, but they have not been tested and proven in open court with cross-examination. So we treat them as claims, serious claims, but claims all the same until a court rules otherwise. That distinction matters,
because a man's own defense is not the same thing as a court's verdict. Let's talk about something that always makes a story like this feel real to Nigerians: the money. Because in this country, we know that grammar can hide a lot of things, but when people start talking figures, that's when you know something serious was actually being planned. According to Maji's own account, the plot was, at one point, abandoned, not because the officers changed their minds about the mission, but because of paucity of funds, poor logistics, and inadequate manpower. Think about that for a moment. A coup plot in Nigeria allegedly stalled not by conscience but by lack of money. He claims that much of the early financing came from his own personal resources. He also mentioned that one army major reportedly contributed 1 million naira and another officer allegedly supplied dollars on different occasions. There is also a claim, a serious one, that a man named Zekeri requested 1 billion naira to help secure access to the villa, and that Maji told him they were driven by patriotism, not money, but that whatever was available he would share. Now again, I must be careful here. These are details from Maji's own statement as reported. Nigerians should treat them as allegations that form part of the ongoing court case, not as a settled, court-proven fact. But if true, it paints a picture of a plot that was, at some stages, almost amateur in its planning, driven by conviction but crippled by resources. Now, here is a twist in this story that many Nigerians will find interesting, maybe even controversial. According to reports, the plot, after being abandoned for lack of funds, was allegedly revived after Maji was overlooked for promotion to the rank of Brigadier General for a second time around 2024. Let that sink in. A man says his plan to help topple a government was revived after a professional disappointment, a promotion he felt he deserved but did not get. Now, to be fair to him, Maji has maintained in his own statement that his failure to secure that promotion was not the primary reason for the alleged coup. He insists the driving force remained patriotism and concern for the state of the nation. But Nigerians watching this story, and indeed the court trying this case, will rightly ask the hard question: how much of this was about love of country, and how much of it, even partly, was about a wounded ego and a blocked career path? This is exactly the kind of tension that credible journalism must present honestly, not by telling you what to believe, but by giving you both sides of the coin and letting you weigh it yourself. Beyond the promotion angle, Maji built a big part of his defense around the welfare of ordinary soldiers, the men and women who go into the trenches of the Northeast to fight insurgents, kidnappers and bandits, often with very little to show for it when they return, injured or otherwise. He specifically raised concerns about the treatment of wounded soldiers, alleging that some of those receiving care at the 44 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital in Kaduna were not getting adequate treatment. This is a claim not yet independently confirmed in this reporting, but it touches something very real and very sensitive in Nigeria, the way we treat our men in uniform after they have bled for this country. He also painted a broader picture of national decline, poor governance, insecurity, economic hardship, and a common man, in his words, with no hope, left to defend himself. Whether or not you agree that this justifies a coup plot, and let's be honest, many Nigerians will say nothing justifies that, you cannot pretend that the underlying frustration he is describing does not exist in millions of homes across this country today. Now, fairness demands that we also hear the strongest version of the opposing argument, the case against what Maji is saying and against coup plotting as a whole. Critics, and indeed Nigeria's own democratic history, will argue this: patriotism does not give any soldier the right to overthrow a democratically elected government. Nigerians voted. Whatever frustration exists with governance, and there is plenty of it, the Constitution provides a path: elections, courts, protests, the ballot box in 2027, not soldiers marching on Aso Rock. There is also the argument that framing a coup plot as patriotic is a dangerous precedent. If every officer who feels underpaid or overlooked for promotion can justify plotting against government by dressing it in the language of love of country, then no elected government in Nigeria will ever be safe. Nigeria has already lived through the coup years, decades of military rule that many analysts say set this country back economically and politically. Those who lived through it will tell you, democracy, no matter how frustrating, is still better than the uncertainty of the barracks ruling the nation. And then there is the institutional argument. The defense headquarters, for its part, has been cautious, not rushing to make public comments, citing the fact that the matter is in court, what lawyers call sub judice. That caution itself tells you how seriously the military and the government are treating this matter, regardless of how patriotic the accused claim their intentions were. So, my people, what does all of this mean for you sitting at home, trying to survive in this economy? Let me bring it down to earth. First, this story is a mirror. Whether or not you support what Maji allegedly tried to do, the frustrations he describes, struggling to pay school fees, struggling to feed a family, watching a country you love seem to drift, those are frustrations many of you feel every single day. The difference is you don't have access to guns and soldiers. He allegedly did, or at least tried to organize men who did. Second, this story matters for national stability. Every time there is talk of coup plots in Nigeria, it affects investor confidence. It affects the value of the naira. It affects how the international community sees us. Nigerians doing business. Nigerians sending money home from abroad. Nigerians simply trying to plan their future. All of that is shaken when there is instability in the corridors of power. Third, and maybe most importantly, this is a test of our justice system. How Nigeria handles this case, whether it is seen as fair, transparent, and consistent, will tell all of us and the world whether our democracy can protect itself without becoming vindictive or, on the other hand, without becoming too soft on those who plot against it. Now, let me give you my honest take. As someone who has followed Nigerian politics for many years, I believe every Nigerian, in uniform or out of uniform, has the right to be frustrated with governance. God knows we have enough reasons. But the moment that frustration turns into a plot to seize power by force, that is a red line. Our democracy has been bruised too many times by men in uniform who believed they alone knew what was best for the country. What should happen next, in my honest opinion, is simple: due process. Let the court hear the evidence. Let Maji and every other accused person defend themselves properly. Let Nigerians see transparency in how this trial proceeds, not a rushed hidden process and not a public lynching either. Justice done properly is the only outcome that protects both our democracy and the rights of the accused. But separately, and this is important, government must also listen to the frustration underneath this story. You cannot keep dismissing the anger of underpaid soldiers, struggling families, and a hopeless common man as simply noise or propaganda. If the conditions that Maji described are even partly true, addressing them is not just about preventing coups, it is about basic justice for the men and women who protect this country.
Before I let you go tonight, let me leave you with the questions this story has not yet answered, the things we should all be watching closely as this case continues. Number 1. What does the full court record show about how far this plot actually progressed? Was it just talk among frustrated officers, or were there concrete steps taken toward execution? Number 2. Who else, beyond the names already mentioned, was involved? And will more senior figures, military or civilian, eventually be implicated? Number 3. Will the claims about the treatment of wounded soldiers at the Kaduna Reference Hospital be investigated separately, regardless of how the coup case itself is resolved? Number 4. How will the court weigh Maji's claim of patriotic motive against the promotion-related timeline that suggests personal frustration also played a role? And finally, will this case change how the Nigerian military handles welfare complaints internally, so that officers feel they have channels to air grievances without ever considering something as drastic as this? That is where we leave this story tonight, Nigerians. But I promise you, this channel will be watching every twist and turn of this trial as it unfolds in court. If this story opened your eyes tonight, do me a favor, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to understand what is really happening in our country, and drop your honest thoughts in the comment section. I read every single one of them. This has been NAIJA News Online, bringing you the story behind the story. Stay informed, stay awake, and I will see you in the next one.